Hello, my name is Corey Funk, and this is Funk Film Reviews. I usually would save this for my birthday thing, but I'm starting this first video I've been doing, and it's going to let people know my top. Well, it's not top 15, not anything like this, but every number one film of mine of every year since the year I was born to 2023. I'm not doing 24 yet because the year's not over. So these are from 81 to 2023. My favorite movie of the year I was born stars Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, and it's the very first Indiana Jones film. This is probably one of the only. I guess there's maybe a few popular picks, but this is probably the most popular pick when it comes to, because a lot of people love this movie. So yes, Steven Spielberg's classic adventure flick, Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, is my number one film of the year I was born, which was 1981. 1982, my favorite film, was a John Carpenter movie about a bunch of scientists who go to Antarctica in this little area, and they see this alien that does all this shape-shifting stuff, and it's got and it was actually Critical Bomb at the time, but I think it's one of my two favorite science fiction type horror films, and Kurt Russell's in it, and Kurt Russell freaking kills it as R.J. McCready. And that movie is John Carpenter's The Thing. The Thing is my favorite film from 1982. My favorite film of 1983. Was nominated for Best Picture, didn't win it. Actually got 3 Oscar nominations, and it stars Glenn Close, Kevin Kline, Jeff Goldblum, Tom Berenger, Mary Kay Place, Meg Tilly, almost said her sister, but it's Meg Tilly, William Hurt, Jo Beth Williams. And it's a story about a bunch of friends who go to a friend's funeral, and then they all spend the weekend together at this one group of Glenn Close and Kevin Kline. They're a married couple in it, and they spend the weekend at their house, and they reminisce about their old friend Alex that killed himself and all that, and the old memories and what they're going through. And this movie is called The Big Chill, directed by Lawrence Kasdan. And yes, 1983, my favorite film is The Big Chill for that year. 1984, it's a story about kind of a rivalry between two classical musicians, Antonio Salieri and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. It's directed by Milos Forman, won 8 Academy Awards, including Best Actor in a Leading Role, which is kind of shocking. It's F. Murray Abraham, the guy that plays Antonio Salieri, not the title role of Tom Hulce, which is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And it is a movie called Amadeus. That is one of 3 films on my list that won the Best Picture of the year of my favorite films. But surprisingly, it's one of 3. There's not many of them. There's a lot of nominees and things like that, but there's only 3 that won the Best Picture. So yeah, my favorite film of 1984 is Amadeus. Let's go on to 1985, which is actually my favorite film of the decade of the 1980s, about 5 students who have different ways of life. There's an athlete, a princess, a criminal, a basket case, and a brain. And they all spend a Saturday at school in detention for different reasons. And this film is called The Breakfast Club, directed by John Hughes, which is one of the first times they use a lot of amazing dialogue, and it deals as coming-of-age story that I think is a brilliant coming-of-age story. And it's my favorite film of 1985 is The Breakfast Club. My favorite film of 1986, it is a film directed by James Cameron. It is actually a sequel to a 1979 film. It stars Sigourney Weaver, who plays Ellen Ripley, and then she meets this girl that she calls Newt, and she protects her from the aliens. And to me, Ripley is the most badass female in all of cinema, and it's because of Aliens. Aliens is my favorite film, directed by James Cameron, who had many movies like The Terminator 1 and 2, Titanic, True Lies, all that. But my favorite film of his is 1986 film called Aliens. 1987 film directed by Rob Reiner, starring Cary Elwes, starring Robin Wright, starring Mandy Patinkin, starring Andre the Giant. Yes, Andre the Giant is in this film. Also starring Peter Falk as a grandfather telling a story to his grandson, which is Fred Savage. And it is a beautiful love story called The Princess Bride. It is my favorite film of 1987. 1988, a movie directed by Robert Zemeckis, starring Bob Hoskins, Christopher Lloyd, and this movie also has Kathleen Turner playing Jessica Rabbit, doing the voice of Jessica Rabbit. And it's about a toon that meets this real-life detective that hires him because he's been framed for a murder. So, and this also has cameos. The only time you'll see Donald Duck and Daffy Duck on the same screen. And it is called, also Christopher Lloyd plays the main bad guy. And he has the Weasels helping him, which are other toons, characters that kill other toons. And this movie is directed by Robert Zemeckis, not Rodriguez. There's a film by that director on this list, but that's way over there. But this movie is called Who Framed Roger Rabbit? My favorite film of 1988. My favorite film of 1989 stars Robin Williams, a young Ethan Hawke, and a bunch of other very, very young actors and all that. Robin Williams plays a teacher by the name of John Keating, who inspires these kids to love poetry. They all meet for poetry sessions and all that, and he actually helps them stand up against the status quo. And this movie is directed by Peter Weir. It has won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. Robin Williams got an Academy Award nomination for this movie. This movie in 1989, my favorite film in 1989, is called Dead Poets Society. Now, 1990. This one has Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, who won the Oscar playing Tommy DeVito, Paul Sorvino, Lorraine Bracco, who was nominated for Best Supporting Actress playing Henry Hill's wife, Karen Hill. And Henry Hill gets into the mob and stuff like that, and this is one of the greatest gangster films of all time. This is directed by the great Martin Scorsese. This film is called Goodfellas, and it is the best film of 1990 in my opinion. Thank you very much. Going on to 1991. This movie stars Anthony Hopkins. It stars Jodie Foster, which is actually my favorite performance by a woman on screen ever, playing Clarice Starling. And most people say Terminator 2, and I do love that movie. I do, but it's not my top movie. My top movie is the one that won Best Picture, my second movie to win Best Picture, to be on this list. It is directed by Jonathan Demme, also took home 5 Oscars, picture, director, actor, actress, and adapted screenplay. This film is called Silence of the Lambs, and I flat out love this film. And going on to 1992, and this one is going to be a totally different film. It has a voice, it's a cartoon movie, has a voice played by the infamous Robin Williams, who I think is the best acted character in an animated film of all time. I love this movie, and I even have the genie there as a tattoo. As you can see, this movie is 1992's Aladdin. Don't get me started on the live action one. Disney live action films suck of these remakes, except The Jungle Book, but that's not on my list. But Aladdin, 1991, my favorite cartoon, my favorite cartoon movie. It's actually one of 3. Yes, there's going to be 3 cartoon movies on this list also. And Aladdin is my favorite film from 1992. 1993 has a lot of actors starting out in it, with good old Matthew McConaughey has his first acted role. Also has Parker Posey. Also has Ben Affleck. Has Rory Cochrane, who plays in a lot of this guy's movie. This director is by the name of Richard Linklater, and this film deals with a bunch of high school kids graduating high schools, doing a party, and it also deals with the freshmen that are going into the freshman year, trying to avoid getting hazed. But this film, and it deals with a huge party night afterwards, and they're all getting stoned, they're all partying, and this movie is called Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused is my favorite film from 1993. 1994 is actually my all-time favorite movie with my all-time favorite director, and there's a few movies with this director in this list. This movie stars John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Uma Thurman, Bruce Willis, Christopher Walken, Harvey Keitel, Eric Stoltz, a lot of amazing actors that do a lot of amazing performances. My favorite performance by Samuel L. Jackson of all time, playing Jules Winfield. He plays a hitman, with also John Travolta playing a hitman, and it's like three kind of stories together that kind of commingle, and it's just brilliant movie. And this movie is and this is actually a good year in film in general, but my favorite film of 1994 is Pulp Fiction, also my all-time favorite movie. Now, 1995. This one stars Mel Gibson, Brendan Gleeson, Patrick McGoohan, Sophie Marceau, Kelly MacDonald, and it stars Mel Gibson plays and directs this movie. Also won Best Picture, so it's this is the third and final one that won Best Picture. And this plays William Wallace, who's fighting the British and all that, who his wife gets killed, and he wants revenge against these British soldiers that murdered and raped his wife. But this movie is called Braveheart, and also won Best Picture. It's the third one. And Braveheart is my favorite film from 1995. Going on to 1996 now. 1996 is a film with Ewan McGregor, Ewan Bremner, Robert Carlyle, and it deals with also Kelly MacDonald, who was also in Braveheart the year before. And this film is about a bunch of heroin addicts that do this scam and all that, but it has some very sad moments, has some funny moments, very disturbing moments. That's why I never have touched heroin, is because of this movie. But it is a great movie, and it's also another movie that's based in Scotland, and this movie is directed by Danny Boyle. This film is called Trainspotting, my favorite film from 1996. 1997, another film with Ben Affleck, another film with Robin Williams. This one also has Matt Damon. This one also has Minnie Driver and Stellan Skarsgård. Also, Cole Hauser, who is also in Dazed Confused, is in this film too. This film stars a young Matt Damon, who plays this genius who is a janitor and all that, who's getting into trouble in school, but he's a genius. He writes this math equation, and then he ends up getting himself in trouble with the law, and he has Stellan Skarsgård character, and Robin Williams becomes this shrink and helps him out. This film is called Good Will Hunting, and Good Will Hunting is my favorite film from 1997. But going on to 1998, my favorite film stars Edward Norton, Edward Furlong, Avery Brooks, Stacy Keach, Ethan Suplee, and it's about a brother who goes to jail because he killed two black guys who he was involved in a skinhead gang, and he gets out of jail and he's a changed man, and he finds out his brother is following in the same footsteps. And this movie, Edward Norton plays a character by the name of Derek Vineyard. Edward Furlong is his brother Danny Vineyard, who is following into his footsteps, and he has to do this paper on him. And he basically, when Edward Norton's character gets out of jail, he basically wants to make sure his brother doesn't follow in the same footsteps. And in my opinion, Edward Norton should have won the Academy Award. In my opinion, some people may. Roberto Benigni won, but Edward Norton should have won, in my opinion, the Best Actor for American History X, directed by Tony Kaye. And it is American History X, my favorite film from 1998. Now, my favorite film from 1999 is actually based off my favorite cartoon character, which you can tell I'm wearing a Cartman shirt. I love my South Park. But I love the South Park movie for many reasons. I mean, yes, it's a musical, but it's also one of, if not the funniest movie I've ever seen in my life. Also tackles the issue of censorship, and the kids are trying to rescue Terrence and Phillip while their mothers wage war on the country I live in, Canada. But Matt Stone and Trey Parker did this, and Trey Parker got nominated for an Academy Award for a song called Blame Canada, which is a funny-ass song. In my opinion, it should have won Best Original Song. Matt Stone and Trey Parker showed up at the Oscars high on LSD. Robin Williams was a big South Park fan and actually did the song on stage. But yes, my favorite film of 1999 is South Park. Bigger, longer, and uncut. Going on to the new millennium, the year 2000. My favorite film from the year 2000. It is a film with George Clooney, with Tim Blake Nelson, with John Turturro, with John Goodman, with Holly Hunter. And it is a film about a bunch of runaway criminals back in the old Mississippi era and all that. And they're old runaway criminals and all that, and they somehow end up in this recording studio, and they become this group called the Soggy Bottom Boys, and it's directed by Joel Cohen, who also directed Fargo, which is another brilliant movie, but it wasn't my favorite film of that year. But Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is my favorite film from the year 2001. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Year 2000, not year 2001. Now we're going on to the year 2001. And this film stars Nicole Kidman in a haunted house with her kids. And the twist at the end of this movie is a mindfuck. But it also, in my opinion, she should have been nominated for this performance, not Moulin Rouge, although that's a good musical. But my favorite performance of her is in this film, this haunted house film, where the twist is kind of neat and all that at the end. And this movie is called The Others. The Others. My favorite film for 2001. Don't get me wrong, I like the Lord of the Rings movies. They're honorable mentions, but none of them make my top of the year, so I'm just making that out there. But I do like those movies. However, my year of 2002, this film stars Tom Hanks, Paul Newman, Daniel Craig, Jude Law, and Tom Hanks it's an old-timey type gangster movie, and Tom Hanks is a hitman who's doing this to feed his family, and his son ends up seeing him do the crime, and then his boss gets mad at him, and Tom Hanks has to protect his son, run from the other gangsters at that time, and this movie won an Academy Award in 2002 for Conrad L. Hall. This is my favorite film by director Sam Mendes. This movie is called Road to Perdition, and it is my favorite film of the year 2002. In 2003, my favorite film stars Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson, Giovanni Ribisi, Anna Faris, and Bill Murray is a struggling actor who takes this gig to do a whiskey commercial in Japan, and he meets a wife of a band photographer played by young Scarlett Johansson. He's off doing his own little thing. Bill Murray's character and Scarlett Johansson's character develop this friendship, and they're kind of going around the city of Japan, which this movie is my favorite film of the year 2003, and this film is directed by Sofia Coppola. This film is called Lost in Translation. My favorite film of 2003. Now we're going on to 2004. My favorite film stars Jamie Foxx, Kerry Washington, Bokeem Woodbine, directed by Taylor Hackford, and it is a musical biopic. It's the only musical biopic to be on this list, and it is a story about Ray Charles, and the movie is called Ray. And Jamie Foxx does such a good job in this film. And where I do like movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Incredibles, Kill Bill Volume Volume 2. There's a lot of good movies, but my favorite film was Ray with Jamie Foxx. 2004 favorite film. Now we're going on to 2005. This movie stars Bruce Willis, Mickey Rourke, rest in peace Brittany Murphy, rest in peace Michael Clark Duncan, also as Clive Owen, Rosario Dawson, and it's done in black and white in a lot, but there's parts of splash color, and it's based off a graphic novel. And this movie is directed by Robert Rodriguez, which I accidentally made a mistake earlier in this video when I meant to say Zemeckis. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, also directed by Frank Miller, and has moments directed by my favorite director of all time, Quentin Tarantino. And this film is called Sin City. Sin City is my favorite film of 2005. 2006. This one is actually a foreign film done in Mexico, directed by Guillermo del Toro, about a young girl who goes to live with a new kind of abusive stepfather, but discovers this labyrinth in this world of fairy tales, but it's a adult fairy tale. If you don't mind reading subtitles or whatnot, this movie is fantastic and is my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie. And this movie is called Pan's Labyrinth. Pan's Labyrinth is my number one film of the year 2006, with honorable mention to The Departed and Little Miss Sunshine. But Pan's Labyrinth is my number one. Now, 2007. Honorable mentions would be There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men. I like those films, but my favorite film stars Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, also Alan Rickman, Sacha Baron Cohen, and this is about a Johnny Depp's character, Sweeney Todd. He's originally a character named Benjamin Parker, but he discovers this judge, and he meets Helena Bonham Carter's character, and they start making, it's a musical directed by Tim Burton, and it's an R-rated musical, and they start making these people into pies, but they're trying to get to the judge, which is played by Alan Rickman, and this movie is called Sweeney Todd and the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. That is my favorite film of 2007. 2008. This one is a popular choice, but it's also my favorite superhero movie of all time. Directed by Christopher Nolan. Rest in peace to the late, great Heath Ledger, which is my favorite performance on film. And he plays the Joker. Christian Bale plays Batman. And this movie won 2 Oscars, sound editing, and also Heath Ledger, where some people say Heath Ledger is the only good part about this film. No, the sound's great. The cinematography is great. The score is fantastic. I love Christian Bale as Batman. I also love Aaron Eckhart playing good old-fashioned Two-Face, and I also thought that Gary Oldman did awesome, which he usually does. And this film is The Dark Knight, and it is my favorite film of the year 2008. Going on to 2009, my favorite film of 2009. Directed by Quentin Tarantino, the second one that's a solo of his, has Brad Pitt, Christoph Waltz, who also won supporting actor for that performance of Hans Landa. And it deals with a bunch of soldiers trying to go get Nazi scalps and all that, but it also deals with this woman who's ran away, and they're trying to infiltrate Nazis, and these people are trying to kill Nazis. But they do this movie premiere, and it was a death trap for Nazis, and it's an alternate history, and this movie is called Inglourious Bastards, and it is my favorite film of the year 2009. 2010, this movie is directed by David Fincher, starring Jesse Eisenberg, Armie Hammer, Andrew Garfield, Justin Timberlake, Rooney Mara, and this movie deals with Facebook and the lawsuits about getting Facebook off, and some people might think has a brilliant score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, also known as Nine Inch Nails, which won them an Oscar. Won 3 Oscars. In my opinion, this should have won Best Picture. And this movie, David Fincher from 2010, The Social Network. That's my favorite film from 2010. 2011, This film stars Ryan Gosling, Albert Brooks, Carey Mulligan, Oscar Isaac, Ron Perlman, and I forgot Bryan Cranston. He's also in this too. And Christina Hendricks. Mwah, chef's kiss. She's smoking hot. But this movie is about kind of a Hollywood stunt driver who ends up falling in love with his neighbor across, but her husband gets out of jail, and he got into trouble with some bad people, and then he starts kind of helping out these mob people. And yeah, this movie is called Drive, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, and it's actually my favorite film of this decade. And I love the movie Drive. Drive is my favorite film of 2011. 2012, third film by Quentin Tarantino. This one stars Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio, Samuel L. Jackson, Kerry Washington. Second film with both Kerry Washington and Jamie Foxx in it. This film is called Django Unchained, and it's about a slave who meets a bounty hunter who teaches him to be a bounty hunter to try to find the love of his life, his wife Broomhilda. And it's got a lot of language, but it is a brilliant movie in my opinion, and it is my favorite film of 2012 called Django Unchained. Now, with the second director to make another movie on this list, I said Goodfellas in 1990, but this is 2013, and my favorite film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Jonah Hill, Margot Robbie, and this is about a guy who ends up working with Wall Street, but he goes into these small junk bonds, and he ends up scamming people out of money. It's got some funny stuff in this movie, a lot of language, a lot of sex, a lot of drugs. Directed by Martin Scorsese, which is my second favorite director of all time. And this movie is called The Wolf of Wall Street. The Wolf of Wall Street is my favorite film from the year 2013, going on to 2014. This movie stars Ralph Fiennes playing the concierge of a hotel, directed by Wes Anderson. Also has a lot of characters like Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, Adrian Brody, Harvey Keitel, and this movie is called The Grand Budapest Hotel. It is my favorite film of the year 2014. This movie is funny. This movie is brilliant. This movie has beautiful scenery, a beautiful score, and I think it should have beat out Birdman, although that was a very good year for films. Also had Whiplash and Boyhood, which are honorable mentions, same as with Guardians of the Galaxy, but my favorite film of that year is Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel, going on to 2015. Now, this is an odd choice, because technically you could say this is kind of the seventh featuring this character. It has Sylvester Stallone, Michael B. Jordan, Tessa Thompson, and it deals with a character by the name of Adonis Creed, who goes to Philly to become a boxer, and Rocky Balboa ends up training him. And it's kind of like introducing a new series with a new character, but continuing in the Rocky storyline. And I flat out love this movie. It is one of my favorite boxing movies. It is my second favorite Rocky type movie after the first one. And it is my favorite film of the year 2015. And this movie is called Creed. Creed is the best film of 2015. Don't get me wrong. I like Mad Max Fury Road. I like Spotlight. I like The Martian. There was a lot of good movies come out that year, but my favorite film of that year ended up being Creed. 2016. This movie stars Amy Adams. This movie stars Jeremy Renner. This movie stars Forrest Whitaker, and they make contact with aliens, and they're trying to find out. And this movie is directed by Denis Villeneuve, and I think Amy Adams got robbed of an Oscar nomination for this performance. And this movie is called Arrival. This is the first sci-fi favorite movie since Aliens on this list. But I love the movie Arrival. So Arrival is my favorite film of the year 2016. My favorite film of the year 2017 stars good old Hugh Jackman playing Logan. supposed to be like the last Logan until, of course, Deadpool versus like in Wolverine that came out years afterwards. But this was also has Patrick Stewart, and he plays an aging version of Wolverine, and it's done like a Western, but it's a superhero film, and it's second superhero film on this list. And yes, this actually is a superhero film that got an adapted screenplay nomination, but it still angers me it didn't get a Best Picture nomination. And I also think Patrick Stewart should have got an Oscar nomination playing Professor X, because he did so good in that film. But yes, my favorite film of 2017 is Logan. Going on to 2018. This is kind of an odd choice, which it stars Christian Bale, Amy Adams, Sam Rockwell, Steve Carell, and Christian Bale plays the old Vice President Dick Cheney in this movie. Don't give her an honorable mention, Into the Spider-Verse, but this is my favorite film. Directed by Adam McKay, has some political satire in it, but I love this movie. This movie is called Vice, and Vice 2018, that's my favorite film of that year. Favorite film of 2020. This movie stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie. Also stars Al Pacino. And this movie deals with an actor and a stuntman by the name of Cliff Booth. They live by Sharon Tate. This has kind of like a retelling of the Manson house, also has a retelling of the Manson family. Also has good old Bruce Dern in the final performance of Luke Perry. And it's my fourth film by director Quentin Tarantino. And this movie, my favorite film of 2019, is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, going on to 2020, this wasn't a good year for film. And this is kind of an odd one to put on my list, because it's the first time I put a documentary as my favorite film of the year. And it's a documentary that won the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature, and it deals with a guy by the name of Craig Foster. He goes into the oceans of South Africa, and he finds this octopus, and he studies this octopus, and he kind of befriends this octopus. And this movie is called My Octopus Teacher, and it's so beautifully done. And somehow, this documentary is my favorite film of 2020. My Octopus Teacher, best film 2020. Now going on to 2021. My favorite film. A film directed by P.T. Anderson, starring the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, Cooper Hoffman. Also has Elena Haim, Sean Penn, Bradley Cooper. And it deals with this young actor who actually kind of starts having feelings for an older woman, but it definitely has some heartfelt moments, but has some humor moments. Directed by P.T. Anderson. It was actually surprisingly not my favorite P.T. Anderson film. That goes to There Will Be Blood. But this movie is called Licorice Pizza. Licorice Pizza is my favorite film of 2021. My favorite film of 2022 is actually a remake of an old Best Picture winner, which is kind of shocking because I hated the remake of the old Best Picture winner before that. It was West Side Story, but I think this one, it talks about the German side, and it also is a war film, and because it's a war film, and I feel they've talked to, and it's also won 4 Oscars, this movie, and this movie is called All Quiet on the Western Front, directed by Edward Berger. And it is my favorite film of 2022. Now, the very last film on this list is the third animated film I'm talking about, directed by Hayao Miyazaki, which the English version has performances by Robert Pattinson, Christian Bale, another movie with Christian Bale in there, obviously, Florence Pugh, Willem Dafoe, and Mark Hamill. And it deals with this young boy by the name of Mahito, whose mother died during the war with a big fire. He goes staying at his new stepmom's house, which is his father's new wife, which you find out later in the film that it's actually his aunt. Well, it's actually his mom's sister, but he ends up following this heron into this like little world and all that, because this heron promises to in the world to see his mom and all that. But it's got, and this movie is, oh yeah, also has Dave Bautista playing the Parakeet King, which is the big baddie of this film. But this film is called The Boy and the Heron. The Boy and the Heron is my favorite film of 2023. 2024, I don't know yet. I do have movies I like that came out. I liked the movie The Beautiful Game. So far, it would probably be Saturday Night, but like I said, the year's not done yet. But those are my favorite films of that entire, from 81 to 2003, my favorite films of those years. Thank you very much. Bye.